Hello, I'm Jason Ball, and this is Life After News. Byron Lane was writing news copy in the middle of the night in Los Angeles when he got an email that changed his life. It was asking him if he wanted to be Carrie Fisher's assistant. Byron Lane, welcome to the show. So good to see you. It's been a long time. You are what we call a multi-hyphenate, director, actor, playwright, best-selling novelist. But before all that, you were a local TV news reporter, producer, and writer.
And you know what's funny is it's not just before all that, it feels like it's still that. Like I still feel like I'm just telling stories. I'm just saying what's going on.
I love that. That is true. But I feel like local TV news is a way for people to get into kind of the TV entertainment business when we don't necessarily have those connections when we grow up in places like Arkansas and Louisiana. Do you agree with that?
100%. I was in junior high in a really small town in Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana, just outside New Orleans. And I was in Franklinton, Louisiana, going to junior high, and all the kids in that town, all of my peers, they all wanted to be a pharmacist because the cool guy in town was the pharmacist. For whatever reason, everyone knew him. He helped people heal or whatever, and that was never my thing. And I was in Boy Scouts, and one of the guys in Boy Scouts with me, his grandfather was the general manager of WWL-TV in New Orleans, which was a powerhouse at the time of local television news. And
Legendary.
Hoda Kotb came from there, and all these greats.
Right.
So we took a Boy Scout tour of the studio, and then that's when it clicked for me. Like, wow, this is cool. And so that was my pharmacist moment. So it ever since then, it has felt very important to me for young people to be exposed to all kinds of cool things. And I'm really grateful for that Boy Scout trip there that started this journey for me.
I had actually kind of forgotten about this, but when I was the summer before my senior year in high school, I went to a camp. They had all these summer camps around Arkansas, and one of them was about broadcast news. And I don't even know. I feel like I applied to like 3 different camps, and that's the one I got into. So it was just random that it happened. So it just led me on that journey starting at 17.
I just had my heart set on WWL, and so I went to college at Loyola in New Orleans, which had also some connections to Channel 4. And so then I started there as a desk assistant, and then they had an opening for like an overnight associate producer. So I was going to college and working in the middle of the night. So I would get to Channel 4 in the French Quarter at midnight and type all these stories for the great Eric Paulson and Sally Ann Roberts, Robin Roberts' sister, and then at 8 a.m. or whatever, when the show was over, I would race to class and sit bleary-eyed and listen to professors talk to me about the job I was just doing. It was really kind of wild. So I didn't have much of a social life, and I was just so laser focused on that career. So I started in college, and then I got promoted to associate producer, and then producer for the morning show. And then I wanted to be on air. So I went to Alexandria, Louisiana for a couple of years, which was its own like crazy experience. The whole time I was in Alexandria, my dream was just to do live shots because I wanted to get good at live shots. But every single live shot was a disaster. The truck wasn't working because they hardly ever did them. So I'd be at a festival and they'd set me up in front of speakers, and so they'd go live to me, but you couldn't hear me because the music from the speaker or what, it was just always a disaster. That was Alexandria, and then I got a job in Las Vegas at KLAS. And I started there at like a kind of a cable offshoot for their CBS affiliate. And then I got promoted to the CBS affiliate. And then I was on their morning show for a while. And then when that contract ended, I was looking to move up. And they had some jobs at CBS 2 and KCAL9 for overnight writers. So I stuck to what I knew, which was getting up in the middle of the night, and was a news writer over there for a bunch of years.
At that point, did you decide you were over being a reporter, or were you still thinking you might go back into the
being a reporter? That was so many years ago that I can look back at it now with I think some honesty and say the reporting thing was really hard for me. I was always told that I looked really young. And on the other hand, it was also hard. Like I was kind of depressed during the on-air years in Las Vegas. Those were restless nights, and difficult stories to cover, and I was always nervous before every live shot. I never got to a place where I was just like, "Hey, this is great." And I remember I had like an arch enemy in Vegas at the Fox station. There was a reporter there who she was really talented and she was really good at it. So we would show up at the same crime scene, and we would be in some neighborhood, and she'd be knocking on the doors in the middle of the night, waking everybody up to get sound bites and stuff. And I thought that was kind of horrible. I look back now and I'm like, I see why it's good TV. She was good at that. But my boss would then say, "Well, how come Anne has all these great interviews? Where are you?" So there was a pressure to perform, a pressure to dig in, and so the on air thing was hard for me.
It is true. It is a hard job, especially when you're young and you're expected to do all these things and talk to these people. And really, you're waking people up in the middle of the night and knocking down their doors and covering terrible stories. And the expectation, there's a lot, and you have to move very quickly too, right? You get your story, get it together, and then be on TV. So yeah, I couldn't have done it. I certainly, no way
It
I
was
could have done
wild. I
it.
mean, I
So.
I have great memories, and it does feel like I sort of accomplished something, like I put myself through something. But man, some of those stories, and yeah, you were on the run all the time because and then you would have a hit every half hour. So it was, we just got a report of a fire. Some guy just got hit on the strip. So the mast goes up on the live truck, pull it down, get the cable. I mean, it was crazy. Those were wild times. And I was in my 20s. So I don't know how people do it.
I know, especially in Vegas where there's always breaking news, like Los Angeles, I guess, in some
Hmm.
ways. But anyway, so you came to Los Angeles. That's
Yeah.
where we know one another from. You worked as a writer there. Then I left KCAL and went to
Hmm.
KTLA, and I had you over. I was going to interview you and see if you wanted to come over to KTLA, and you told me something very interesting that you were leaving the business to go be a personal assistant for a
That's right.
celebrity, and at the time you couldn't tell me who the celebrity was, and that to me that is a huge turning point in your career. And did you know at that point you were done with news?
Yeah, I think in my heart I knew. I mean, my dream was never really to be a news writer. It was always to be Katie Couric, to be an anchor on air. And I was inspired by Angela Hill at Channel 4, who was just an incredible anchor. And then even at CBS2 KCAL Now at 9, Kent Shocknick, I wrote for him. And watching him work was so incredible. And those were truly like when there was breaking news and Kent would just go to town on it. Those made the job worth it, but nothing else really did. I mean, the money was great because we had a great union, but it was hard hours, hard environment, really tough competition out there in the LA market, and so there was just always this intense pressure, and so I did feel done. I wasn't an anchor. I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do, and so I was looking for the next thing, and I would have never predicted that it would have been. I ended up working for Carrie Fisher. That's who I couldn't tell you about at the time. But
Uh-huh.
um, what happened was I had started getting involved in like independent filmmaking and writing scripts and stuff like that. And someone in that world was an assistant at a Hollywood talent agency called Gersh. And at the time, Carrie
Uh-huh.
was a client at Gersh. She later moved to CAA, but at the time she was at Gersh, and she was looking for an assistant who was gay and a writer. And I think that her team was looking for someone that she might not have had a crush on, and someone who was a serious worker. And at the time, she wasn't doing a lot of acting. She was mostly writing. So her books were the big thing. So they wanted someone who was a writer. So my friend emailed me. I think I got the email in the middle of the night while I was working at CBS2, and was like, "Hey, do you want to be an assistant to Princess Leia?" And I thought, "Oh my God." Um, but if I was going to do it, if I was going to make a change and I was going to do something like that and work for someone, um, an actor or an actress, she really was perfect. Iconic, fun, cool, interesting, had that rich Hollywood pedigree with her mother. And um, so I met with her, and it was just like you'd imagine. It was sort of comical. I was sitting in her mansion, and which was a quirky kind of bohemian space. And she was in the backyard, and I could see her through it was a 100-year-old house. So all the glass was like wobbly, there she was running around the backyard with her latest book, and pages are flying out. I mean, it really was just a comedy. And I thought, this feels like life. This feels colorful and rich. And it was the opposite of what I was doing at CBS2, working in the middle of the night with these insane overhead lights, this insane pressure, showing up to work in my pajamas, everyone in their pajamas, because it was just that kind of grueling situation. And so I thought, let me exit. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy choice, because that was my whole identity. That was my life. What do you do? I work in news. I'm a journalist. I tell important stories. And so it went from that to like running errands for Princess Leia, and getting her electric cigarettes, and getting medications filled, and taking her to doctor's appointments, and sometimes working on a book for her. But that was the change, and that's kind of where it ended, and I never went back.
So that was, I feel like that was really your kind of time for your reinvention, kind of go back into yourself and kind of figure out who you are. And of course, being with Carrie every day, such a creative force, that must have been very inspiring for you to.
I am so lucky that I have met the kind of people I've met in my life. So from Angela Hill at Channel 4, Glenn Milliken at Channel 4, and then Glenn also worked at CBS2 KCAL 9. They really taught me about writing and storytelling, and I carried that all through my years there. Then when I started working for Carrie, I started learning about writing novels and what went into screenplays and making them rich and great. And for a time, she was hired to do punch-ups on screenplays. And so it was a really I'm really lucky. I was around some real greats who taught me about how to craft story, and it really was inspiring. And but the biggest piece of that was working for her was it was just fun, and that really was.
uh
Oh man, I hate to say it, but it really was sort of the opposite of news. News is heavy stuff, except for like maybe you'd write a 15-second story about a water skiing squirrel. But for the most part, it was really hard. And here I am with a person who was so funny and so smart, and there was no pressure. Yeah, it was just sort of it was real loveliness, and that was a real change for me.
And then at that time, you'd kind of also were doing you'd done Herpes Boy, the little short.
Yep.
Where, what was that experience like?
That was great. I wrote this independent movie called Herpes Boy, and it was inspired by it was about this kid who had a birthmark on his face, and people made fun of him on YouTube and called him Herpes Boy, and then the video went viral and all that. And this was in 2008, so it was before this sort of viral thing
Right.
was real. And the writing of the script was the result of really all the things I learned in news, pulling out the leads, the headline of a scene, rich characters, don't waste sound bites on stupid things. Make sure people are saying good, compelling stuff. And that little indie screenplay got me Octavia Spencer. She was in my little Herpes Boy movie. Beth Grant, who people know from The Mindy Project and No Country for Old Men and all these great films, and Anna O'Reilly joined. So I had all these great actors who were interested in the script, and really that script was just the result of storytelling that I learned from the news business. So that was a really cool, fun experience. We won some little awards and whatnot, and but again, like the root was really all just journalism and telling the story of this poor guy who had this birthmark that people made fun of.
In 2016, you did Last Will and Testicle, and it was a humorous look on someone who had testicular cancer.
Yeah, I had testicular cancer, and it's interesting. I'm just realizing now that was another example of sort of almost journalism. So I had these. So when I found out I had testicular cancer, I had to have a testicle removed. I called my dad, and it was like, yeah, I got the testicle removed, and he just was so confused by the whole thing. He was like, well, how many testicles do you have right now? Like he just could trying to wrap his mind around it. And I wrote that down. I was like, that is so funny. And I thought to myself, oh, maybe this is a story to tell also. And so I told this story of this guy whose family reacted poorly to his testicular cancer diagnosis, and so that's where that came from. I was really mining things from my life to make these little works of art.
So was that therapeutic in some ways to help you deal with your what you were going through? I mean, you were young when this
Yeah,
happened.
it was helpful. You know, there's that old cliche about humor getting us through things, and you know, I think maybe I don't know if when I was really in the thick of being a journalist, I considered myself an artist, but there is some artistry to what we used to do. Um, there was artistry in pulling out the interesting parts of a house fire that happened every night, but every time you wrote the story, find the thing that would make it new, that would make it news, and that is artistry, and there is something healing in taking something that was going on in my life and turning it into art. It almost made it useful. So here I had this cancer thing. What a drag! But also, I then can go to friends and say, "Hey, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I got this diagnosis, but I'm going to turn it into some art. What do you think about that?" And people were so supportive and lovely, and then that web series got some small recognition, and that was it was all kind of validating of like it was really turning it was the lemons to lemonade thing.
And Beth Grant was also in that.
Yes, I know. Beth always says yes. I'm so grateful. And then I was getting my hair cut at the time by Jonathan Van Ness, who now is a huge mega star. But at the time, he was just cutting hair on Wilshire, and and even those interactions, getting my haircut with him, you were just like, wow, this guy is a star. And so when I needed someone to play one of my testicles in a dream sequence, I was like, I know somebody, I know a guy. And so JVN jumped right in, and he's really lovely.
That's great. And also, I just realized this when I was researching for today that your now husband was in that series too.
Uh, the character that I played in that series had a boyfriend, and so I cast my hot friend Mark Jude Sullivan to be my boyfriend in that. But my real life boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, I cast him to be my therapist. So I didn't mess around, and he wasn't that hurt by the whole thing. But so I wanted a hot guy to be the boyfriend, and I put my actual hot guy husband as the therapist. Yeah,
That's funny. So I didn't know if that's how you met or you had already been dating.
we were already dating. Yeah, we met on OK Cupid in like I think it was, oh man, I should know the exact date. I think 2013. We met on OK Cupid, and that was just
Okay.
before like all the apps and all the swiping had started. So you really had to like type out an essay, and you know, to be honest with you, I feel a little silly now that I'm having these little moments of revelation. But again, the writing thing helped with that because I wrote this profile. And then both of us were like, "Oh, your profile is so funny. It's so cute." And again, it was just like, anyway. Now we have this little life where we're both writing. So
Oh yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about that. But first, I want to get to the next thing you kind of did, in which you branching out into plays. Now you did the very funny, very entertaining play. Tilda Swinton answers an ad on
Mhm.
Craigslist.
Tilda Swinton Answers an Ad on Craigslist is a just a modern retelling of Mary Poppins. So you've got this otherworldly actress Tilda Swinton, and she swoops into this gay man's life and helps him figure out and untangle some of his life's problems with his parents and his boyfriend and his life in general. And that really kind of came about because I had stopped working for Carrie. I was kind of an assistant at a couple other corporate jobs that were just not that were kind of soul crushing. They just weren't enriching in the way that journalism had been, or that working for Carrie had been. So I was kind of lost and kind of trying to find a new career. And I really wanted to work in entertainment, and but I wasn't getting jobs as an actor, and I wasn't getting jobs as a screenwriter. And so I thought, well, I haven't done a play yet, and what do I need for a play but actors and the stage? That seems easier than, you know, financing a big film. So I wrote this little play, and we did a few readings in my living room, and then we just put it out in the world. And then we ended up going to Edinburgh Fringe twice, and we did two sold out runs in New York, just like off Broadway. We did a week in London, and it was really, I mean, the friendships and the experiences there were so rich and lovely, I mean, it was hard work and we didn't make any money, but it was a cool it was a cool little another angle of storytelling and really rewarding.
I think it has another life. I think I don't know what it is, but I think I don't know if it's a revival or a movie or a story or something, but I don't know why I loved that story so much and the play was so good. And I think it deserves another life.
And we're working on it too. You know, it's a weird time in Hollywood where lots of people, including the companies that provide cameras, they're slow. The business is slow there. Other actors, work is slow. So it does feel like the right time to kind of make it into a movie, or even do a little revival. So my castmates and I are texting about that right now. So I think you're onto something.
All right. So after years with Carrie, you went off and you did these independent films and things. And then did you decide to write A Star is Born because of, I mean, obviously it's based off of your experiences working with
That's right.
Carrie Fisher. And what made you decide to write it as a novel when you had written short films and plays prior to that?
So she died in 2016, and I had put a little. I hadn't been working for her for a couple of years. I mean, we've been in touch, and I had just seen her. She had a birthday party in October. I think she died in December, and so I saw her there, and so it was we were friendly, and she changed my life. I love her to this day, and I'm so grateful for all the things she taught me, and think of her all the time. So she passed away, and my job working for her was really to protect her. So keep her alive. So sobriety was her top priority, and her sobriety became my top priority. Keeping kind of bad influences away from her was a top priority, and and most of my friends didn't even know that I worked for her because I kept it separate. I didn't want to deal with people asking for favors or whatever, and I didn't talk about her. So when she passed away, I thought it was a worthy time to say how wonderful she was to me. And so I did a little post on Facebook, and then that went viral. And then I thought, well, maybe there's something meaningful here that I can share. And she used to joke with me when I worked for her. She was like, "Put this in your book. Put this in your book's going to be real great," you know. And so there was always a sense of, and she, by the way, lived her life that way too. She would mine real things of her life and put them in her novels. And so I kind of learned watching her how to take real life and color it with imagination to craft a story with a beginning and a middle and an end and all that. And so that's what I did with our time together. And she used to say, "Take your broken heart and go make art." And that is what I tried to do with A Star Is Born.
She was actually it was great. Postcards from the Edge, Surrender the Pink, those are both great novels. And so you took that and you well, it's almost like a homage to her or a tribute to her since you did it afterwards and you took what you learned from her and channeled it into this story. I think she would have loved it.
She was always so supportive of any kind of art and all the silly little projects that I had going on. And it really it really is a love story to her, and in two ways: in the way she taught me to write, and in the ways she taught me about writing, and in a story about friendship and the things that some poor kid from Louisiana can learn from some millionaire iconic movie star, and Hollywood royalty. And between her and her mom and watching them navigate the world, and I'm really lucky because I have this exposure to a celebrity who didn't throw things. She wasn't rude. She was generous. Sometimes she would just give me a raise, and I'd think that there was a mistake on the paycheck, but then she just gave me a raise. Like, there were just beautiful moments. She would never go out of town and then return home without bringing gifts for the other people who helped run her household. I mean, it was truly a beautiful. It was the best a celebrity could be, and I'm lucky that I landed in that spot.
So I guess for people who don't know, which I can't imagine there are very many people who don't know, A Star Is Born is your novel that about a young assistant who helps out this kind of aging star who does other things too, based on your relationship
That's
with her
right.
for
It's
those years.
definitely inspired by my time with Carrie Fisher. Yeah, it's a young guy who is down and out in his life. He's trying to figure out what the hell he's going to do next and whether he even wants to keep on going. And then he meets this movie star, and they both really need help. It's different kinds of help. He really needs someone to help him live, and she needs someone to help him to help her take her medicine. And then they end up on these journeys together, and some of them are inspired by our real life adventures. She took me to one night. I don't know. I think it was like a Thursday, and she used to get weather alerts from the weather service because she was obsessed with the stars and the aurora borealis. And so she gets this weather alert that says that the northern lights are going to be pretty spectacular the next night or something. And so she calls me up. We got to go to Canada. Pack. I didn't even have a winter coat. Like, it was that kind of thing. And so the next day we're on a flight and we go to Banff, and we're in this hotel, and she has to, as soon as we land, she has to buy me a big winter coat. And we we work with this guy who takes us out to a frozen lake bed, and we watch the northern lights together. And it was just her and I, and it was just like a crazy little moment that as I'm saying it, it's like I can't believe that that happened to me. But that's how I saw the northern lights with Carrie Fisher. And there's a little scene in the book that's similar.
The book came out in the summer of July
That's right.
2020, right in the middle
That's
of the
right.
pandemic, and I think that timing was unbelievably fortunate for you because everyone was home with nothing to do, and then this bright little book of amazing hope and love showed up, and I mean, what do you think? I think you were the star of the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have brightened people's lives with that. Publishing at the time was really weird. Most of the bestsellers at that time were books that had already been bestsellers for years and years. So people were going kind of back to the classics. So
Uh-huh.
there were some books like mine that performed well, and but most books during that time really struggled. And so I'm grateful to have been on the side of books that did pretty good during that time. I still am like on a campaign to get it in front of people and to share the story. But it was a really special time.
There's a storyline about the character meeting his boyfriend, and I think that's also kind of based on your relationship with your husband Stephen.
My first book, my first novel, I was just pulling from every real thing. And so in the book and in real life, meeting Stephen, my husband Stephen Rowley, he's also an author. He wrote The Guncle and The Celebrants, and he meeting him was one of the ingredients that led to me leaving the Carrie Fisher job, because she was about to do the new Star Wars, the first, The Force Awakens, I think it was, and she was moving to London. That was going to be a big move and a long time away. She wanted to buy a house out there and everything, so she was ready to kind of plant roots and start a new life. And money was coming in for her from that, and it made it a little harder to manage her, manage who was around her. So things were getting really complicated, and I was also going through a phase of am I living my life or am I living someone else's life? That was part of it. I wanted a dog. She got a dog. So everything was sort of adjacent. And if I didn't have other ambitions and things that I wanted in life, it would have been just a perfect job. I could have stayed with her forever. And many assistants do live like that. So Debbie Reynolds' assistant Donald, he was with her for life. They lived in the same house together, and it was a beautiful friendship. So I met Steven, and I thought, I don't know if this relationship will survive me going to London and meeting all these English boys. You know what I mean? And I wanted this relationship to work. He was great, and so I left the job and stayed in LA. And Stephen and I are now married, and I think um, been together for over 10 years, and It's my first serious relationship also, by the way. Like, I had only had, like, 2-week relationships at a time, but by the time I met Steven, I was really ready, and it was a beautiful little pairing.
But also in Stephen's first book, The Lily and the Octopus, there's kind of a similar story where there's a character not dissimilar to you that he meets as well. Was
Yeah.
that coincidental, or did you guys plan that?
I think, well, both of us were they were both our first books, and so we really were just trying to pull from real life, and in a way that would allow us to tell an authentic story, a character's authentic story. And so for me, meeting him was an authentic reason for a change in my life. And so when I was going through A Star Is Born, giving the character in that book, a similar authentic change just felt right. And I think it was the same for Lily and the Octopus. And in Lily and the Octopus, there's actually even a little extra twist because in his first draft of that, he used my real name, Byron. And there was a bit in there about a Lord Byron poem and all this stuff. And then once it sold and it kind of got forward along the line, there was some conversation about, oh, do we still call the character Byron? And he kept it in there because it mirrored the poem so well and all that. But so it really is a very special telling of our love story between the two books. And then in the credits of the acknowledgments of A Star Is Born, I proposed to him. So that was my "Will you marry me?" was the last bit, which was also a little dramatic because when it was time for the book to be published, the clock was ticking and final drafts had to be approved. And I remember calling my editor and being like, "Hey, you know what? Can I add a few words to the end of the acknowledgments?" He was like, "What are you talking? It's at the printer. What are the words?" I was like, "Oh, I want to say, 'Will you marry me?' to Stephen." He was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we can fit that in."
I forgot
Yeah.
about that. That's so cute.
He didn't know, and in fact, like when the final books showed up, before they end up at bookstores, they send the author a little box of them, and so the box arrived, and I opened it up, and I was like, "Hey, come see my book," and he was like, "Oh, I read that book how many times? There's nothing in there I haven't seen." And then I showed him the "Will you marry me" part, and then his first reaction was actually like, "Is this in every copy?" But indeed it is, and now it's in the Library of Congress, and then when he wrote the Guncle, at the end of the Guncle, there's a little response to my proposal. So it's a very sweet. It's almost gross. It's almost gross. It's almost like too romantic, but it was our little moment.
No, it's not. It's super sweet. So the Gungle is set in Palm Springs, and when did you guys move to Palm Springs?
In like 2019, and it really was sort of, let's try it out. And we've been here ever since, and it's just been great.
So you came before the pandemic, so it was
It was an
intentional
accident.
for you guys to leave
Yeah,
LA.
it was. We intentionally
An
left
accident.
LA in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. So we were, I think, kind of lucky to be out here during that time.
Uh-huh.
So we had already left. It was just kind of a happy accident.
So how is it living and working in a house with two writers? You've both written multiple novels now.
It's saved by us being on different sides of the house and sometimes slamming doors. But for the most part, yeah, we just keep our separate spaces, and then sometimes we meet in the middle at lunch, and it's really lovely to be able to. Well, first, so he had his publishing success before me, and so I can sometimes go to him and be like, "What about this? What about that?" And then likewise, we can talk about story and what kind of midpoint are you working on? Where are you on the process? And we read each other's work. So there's some overlap, and we also understand the language too. So if we have an idea while we're on a walk and we have to say, "Oh, I'm going to make a note real quick," we both get that. The biggest problem is if we're at a dinner party or something and someone says something crazy and we both want to use it in our next work, and it's sort of a race to like, "Did you hear that thing she said about the sheep?" I'm like, "Oh my God." So it's like, who can get it in their book first is kind of how that shakes out.
That's funny. Do you love living in Palm Springs?
I really do love it. I feel like it's well, so different from LA in that it's there's parking there at the post office or the grocery store. There's not a bunch of crazy traffic all the time. You can get from one end of town to the other. And the thing I worried about the most living out here was that we wouldn't see our friends. But the truth is, this is a big vacation town. So our friends are coming through all the time, and sometimes it's too much. I think, "Oh my God, we've seen too many friends this weekend." It's exhausting, but we're seeing the people we love. We're still connected to the world, and it's a beautiful little town.
It is. It was funny yesterday. I was working away and I had a dentist appointment and I forgot about it. And the alarm goes off, and it says 10 minutes. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But I brushed my teeth and drove to the dentist and got there right at two
Of
o'clock.
course, I mean, you could never in
Right.
LA. You could never.
You're right too. I do love that people come out and they always want to see you when they're there. And it's funny, like just booking them. Like, okay, we're gonna have lunch with this person. We're gonna have a drink with this person. We're gonna, breakfast here or just hang out. But it is great. You actually see, in some ways, you see people more often than you did in LA because you don't have to deal with the traffic and the planning and the canceling.
That's right. And then if they stay with you, you are actually having real quality time versus like, I have 40 minutes and then I got to get on the 101 before, it's like that kind of thing.
What else do you love about Palm Springs?
I love the weather. I really don't mind the heat. The heat is hardest. We have a couple of dogs, Raindrop and Shirley, and so we have to worry during the summer about walking them. But other than that, I love the weather. I love the vibe.
What are some of your favorite places?
Bar Cecil is so fun, and when people are in town, we love to take them to Melvin's because it's just such a cool old school experience. But I also love El Mirasol, this Mexican restaurant out here that's been around forever. And then I'm still discovering things. Sometimes people will be shocked that I haven't seen and experienced every restaurant, but there's a crepe place near where we live, like right next to El Mirasol South, and I ate there for the first time the other day. It was just incredible. Like you can get like a chicken buffalo crepe or a veggie crepe, or you can get a dessert one, of course. But I'm still discovering stuff out here. I'm discovering hiking trails that I'd never heard of, and it's a really beautiful. There's a great gay community here for people who are in recovery. There's a great recovery community here. It really does feel like a little something for everyone.
I mean, literally, we can't go anywhere without running into
I
someone
know.
we know. Everywhere we go, it feels like we were walking the dog and this guy rides up on his bicycle. And first I didn't recognize him. And it was like this guy we know who lives on the other side
It's
of town.
so cool. It is a small town, and yet it still doesn't feel like a crusty, dilapidated small town. It feels lively and lovely.
It's very friendly too. People walk down I mean, we live right near downtown. So we walk most places, which is nice. And people, greet you on the sidewalk and smile and say hello. So it is nice. And I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, but I feel like I know more people here than I did there.
By the way, we should get paid for this. We're being really honest and really, really true. We need to tap into the Chamber of Commerce and be like, hey, what are you talking about? We got you.
That is true. So let's talk about Big Gay Wedding first, your second novel, which is set in your
Yep.
home state, Louisiana. And tell us what that's about.
Well, I was trying to figure out my second book, and my editor at the time saw that Steve and I got married, and we had a little gay wedding. So it was during COVID, and there was some conversation between the two of us about, do we just have a small wedding? Or do we make it a big thing where we spend a lot of money and invite the family and all that stuff? And we thought, well, we're in the middle of COVID. It's kind of a good excuse to not invite anyone. Let's hurry and do it, and just keep it the two of us. So it was just us, and our friend Aaron was our officiant, and we rented this little house around the corner that had been untouched since the 60s. So it still had like all the crazy decor and every wall wallpapered and, matching bed sheets. I mean, crazy, but so fun. And so we just got married in that little house. And so it was a very small wedding. And my editor saw the pictures on Instagram and all that and thought, well, what about a gay wedding book? And I resisted at first because I thought, well, little gay wedding, how do you do a book about that? And then a big gay wedding, what came to mind was like some kind of crazy Manhattan thing, like the Sex and the City movie with Liza Minnelli, the fish, all that. And that just wasn't authentic to me. But then I thought, well, what if you've got a guy who wants to go back home to Louisiana, like the kind of small town where I grew up in there, and he wants to have his wedding there, and his mother loves him, but she has to think about whether that's going to be cool with the neighbors and all that stuff. So Big Gay Wedding ended up being a little bit Schitt's Creek and a little bit Father of the Bride, about a mom who has this farm for misfit animals, like a three-legged sheep or macaws that curse too much, and so no one wants them in their house. And so she's got this wild farm and a conservative town, and so she has to kind of choose between standing up for her son or standing in his wedding, and that's the story of Big Gay Wedding.
I thought it was really interesting, and it was almost like the mother's coming out story in some ways too, because she had accepted her son being gay, but she didn't really want to tell anybody or talk about it, so she wasn't that public about it. So I thought that was an interesting take on the traditional coming out story.
Some of those things that the mom says are things that were said to me in when I grew up down in the South. And the ranch that she owns is called Polite Society Ranch, and that's really part of the vibe down there. People are polite almost to a fault, where they don't want to talk about things that might upset people and that kind of thing. So it really was another case of kind of pulling from little bits of life to make to tell an authentic story.
So what are you working on now?
Well, I got another play I'm working on about a guy who befriends makes an unusual friend who helps him through life. So it's some wild Tilda vibes, but it's still a work in progress. And I'm working on a couple of new books, and I'm not sure which one is gonna pop next, but I do hope to have some news about it soon. And in the meantime, I'm really just I'm still encouraging people to hit the bookstore and check out A Star Is Board and Big Gay Wedding. The local bookstore, best bookstore in Palm Springs, has been so supportive and lovely with my books and with Steven's books, and we always try to keep some signed copies on hand there. And they ship all over the world too, so if you want a signed copy shipped to you, when you check out on their website, just put in the comments that you want it signed, and I'll make sure I go down there and do that.
They are great, and I was very happy when that opened, and you guys are always featured in there.
Yeah, it's really special, and I'm not sure we would have that kind of love in a big city like LA. It's so having the only bookstore here in town be so supportive and lovely, it really does make the whole town feel warm.
So just a couple of the last questions. Who's your favorite writer?
Chuck Palahniuk is my favorite. He's best known for Fight
All
Club,
right.
and I think that kind of surprises people because I'm really a nice guy, Jason. So like I'm not a fighter, and his books always have like this really dark twist. But I find his writing so engaging, and he calls himself a minimalist, and it really is true. He uses his words carefully. So every book of his, I've got Invisible Monsters right here on my desk. Every choice is rich, and so I just love his writing so much. Invisible Monsters of his is my favorite, and I think I'm going with that one because Fight Club's kind of a cliche. And Invisible Monsters is a it's also just interestingly told. It keeps me on the edge. It makes me laugh, and it's also horrifying. There are crazy moments, but I think it's a really cool story.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm really honored you wanted to chat.
Everything you want to know about Byron is on his website, byronlane.com. Can't wait to see what he does next. As for us, next week we have meteorologist Josh Rubenstein, who became the communications director for the Los Angeles Police Department. Josh tells you how to make that transition from journalist to communications. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.